Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab episode 811 for Monday, April 20th, 2020. Folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found. We take all that stuff, we answer your questions, we share your tips, we share some of our own tips, we share some of our own cool stuff found. The goal being that each and every one of us learns at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include expressvpn.com/mgg, mailroute.net/mgg, and mac.cashfly.com. We'll talk about all those URLs in a little bit. For now, as usual, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, with my coffee, this is John F. Braun.
Coffee is good. For some of us. Coffee, I don't. No, it's no bueno for me. I don't care for the taste of it, and also it's got caffeine in it, which is not my best friend. So there you go.
Yeah, what I've found is you may want to try. A lot of people say that the darker coffee has more caffeine, but I think the opposite is true. Is that medium or light blend actually? So maybe try something not so dark. Maybe you'll like the taste better.
I think the scientists disagree with you in terms of caffeine content. I think what you said first is right, that the darker stuff tends to have more caffeine. It doesn't matter. Coffee, light, dark, in the middle, too much caffeine for me. It further reduces my tolerance for humanity, is what I like to say. So and nobody needs that right now. So let's go and help humanity and share some quick tips, shall we? Kate starts us off today, and Kate says, I thought I'd share this quick tip. I haven't used the iOS Apple Mail app for a while, but I revisited it again recently. Did you know that your swipe options are for the same for the messages list, like the ones that you use in the messages list to swipe back and forth? They're the same if you're in an individual message. You can swipe the entirety of the message left or right to get those like archive and trash and reply and all of that stuff. She says, I swipe left to delete, but if I'm viewing a specific message, I can swipe the screen left and see the same option to delete, etc. So yeah, wow. I don't know that if I knew that, I have forgotten it. So thank you, Kate. That's a handy one. I like it. Pretty good, huh, John?
Yeah, I think I knew that.
Yeah, there you go.
But haven't said anything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always useful to swipe on everything and see what happens.
That's the beauty of the quick tip, right? Is that it's those things that are obvious to us once we're doing them, but not necessarily obvious to others. Yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Kate. All right, and Craig has a tip / cool stuff found. We've got a couple of cool stuffs found to talk about. He says, for anyone who has Parallels Toolbox installed, one of the included tools is Uninstall Apps. It's really great for those apps you might try out but decide not to keep. As you know, when you install an app, there are often lots of associated files that get installed in various places, like the library, that are orphaned if you just delete the app out of the applications folder. They become cruft, they gradually clog things up, etc. Some apps come with their own uninstallers, but when you run the Parallels Toolbox app uninstaller, it shows you all the associated files in addition to the app that you want to uninstall and where they're located, of course. He says if you decide to proceed with the uninstallation, it deletes all the hidden associated files that can really add up over time. Very cool. Thank you for that, Craig. Cool. Parallels Toolbox is one of those things, John. It's a handy thing to have around. So I always forget about that one. So that's good.
Yeah, I haven't been using it. As far as uninstalling, I found that AppCleaner is good at getting rid of that's what I use to get rid of the additional cruft. It's pretty smart about all the stuff buried in the system other than the app itself. So,
well, that's good. That's good, man. Cool. All right. Well, we put links to all of that in the show notes that you'll find at macgeekgab.com, of course. And you can get them emailed to you every week at also at macgeekgab.com. Just put in your email address. Then you don't have to remember to go there. So, I have my next submission to Cool Stuff Found is an app. It's SoundSource 4 from Rogue Amoeba. Anybody that pays attention to sort of the behind the scenes of how we make this show happen knows that we use a lot of Rogue Amoeba apps, specifically Audio Hijack and Loopback, to really kind of tie the whole audio workflow together to make this show work. In fact, it's Audio Hijack that records the file that you hear that you download in the feed. And so their apps definitely are for audio geeks in that sense. However, SoundSource 4, especially version 4, is an app that I think everybody would love. They're sponsors of the website last week, and so therefore I dug back into SoundSource because that was the app that they had us, and it was like, oh my gosh, why have I stopped using this? They're not sponsors of the podcast, but it's cool stuff, so I found it. So I'm telling you about it, but that's why I found it. SoundSource used to be, years ago, when I first used it, it was an app that let you pick your sound devices from the menu bar, right? Now Apple, years ago, in fact, Apple added that to macOS, essentially Sherlocking what SoundSource was doing. Well, they've revamped it now so it can do lots more. Of course, you can do that. But now what SoundSource lets you do is you can pick which audio device is going to get the audio from any given app, right? So if you want music to always come out your nice speakers, but when you're on like a Zoom call, you want that to go to your headphones, you can route things so that you don't have to mess with your sound preferences every time you launch an app. It just knows. Or if you like you do your Hangouts or, video calls or whatever on one monitor and that monitor has a speaker in it, you could route the audio to that so that you get like some spatial awareness or whatever. And of course you can do EQ on your audio. And if you want to add some compression and like things like that, you can get geeky with it. But John, one of my favorite features and the thing that really like pushed it over the top for me is I use an external audio device. I know a lot of people do. Like sometimes you use it with, like HDMI or whatever. And when you do that, the audio buttons on your keyboard don't work anymore because it's not your internal audio. SoundSource makes your volume buttons work for external audio devices like HDMI or, third-party USB or, whatever, which is pretty cool. So anyway, go check it out. They actually, because they were sponsors of TML this week, they gave us a coupon for 20% off. So I'll put the link and everything in the show notes, but that's my software addition to Cool Stuff Found. Cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I have a hardware edition, John. It's Anker's PowerCore 10K wireless. It's as you might imagine, a battery pack that is wireless. But it's super thin. It's like, thinner, probably thinner than my iPhone, maybe about the same thickness as my iPhone. It's a little smaller than an iPhone 11 Pro, and it's got a cheap pad in it and a 10,000 milliamp hour battery in there. So you charge it up, you're good to go. It's got 3 ports on it, a USB-C port that is for input only, charging the battery only, and then 2 USB-A ports that you can get 12 watts out of total if you want. So it's pretty cool. It's a nice, it feels good in your hands too. So I highly recommend checking it out. So there you go. That's what I got. Did you have a cool stuff found for us this week, John? I think you did, right?
Yes, I did, Dave. So I finally, with all this extra time, decided to test out a device that I got a while ago, and it's the Eufy Video Doorbell wired.
Also from Anker.
Battery-powered one.
Right.
Yes, that's their brand, or Eufy Security is the sub-brand here.
Sure.
This is what it, and that's the name of the app that I have to run to do it. The reason I was kind of nervous in hooking it up is that they're like part of the installation process. Well, you got to short two screws in your existing doorbell. You got to short them together, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm really happy about that. So I found the transformer in the house that handles the doorbell. There was only one of 2, and then installed it. Now, because it disables your existing doorbell, it still uses the wiring for power, of course. But I guess they don't have enough power to power your existing doorbell. So what they do is they give you an external one that pairs with it. So that's kind of nice. So I actually have multiple sounds. They have, holiday rings and, like 7 or 8 different rings, and then you can set the volume. So that's a good way to solve that problem. Here's what I like about it. So like other doorbells, if somebody rings the bell, you'll get a notification on your device, which is nice. But the one thing that I really like about this is that some other doorbells that I've used. So I'm close to the street and in a high traffic area, and that's a bad environment for a lot of cameras. I found some of them just aren't able to figure it out, and they get a lot of false positives. This one, though, has features that I think get around that. So one, it has what they call AI, is that they'll identify things as what they think it is. So, for example, when a person comes up to it, it'll say, oh, this is a human, and you'll get a notification that a human is nearby. So that's really neat. I did have to fine-tune it, though, but the level of detail that they do in this is really cool. So, I set it for human, and it started getting humans, and there's a sensitivity. What it was doing, though, is it was identifying, it was funny, it was very consistent. It was identifying the wheels of cars driving by as a human, because it thought it looked like a face. And I'm like, oh, no. But here's the nice thing about theirs. They have both an inclusion zone and an exclusion zone. So I basically set it up so that when it found a wheel, it was always in the same spot. So I made that an exclusion zone, so it would ignore those, and then expanded the active zone. And so far, it's been very reliable in that respect.
That's pretty cool, man. Huh?
Yeah. It has a nice image. It's a 2K image.
Okay.
Here's the other nice thing. It has local storage. Some other products, you have to pay to get your video from the cloud.
Right.
This stores it locally. It has, I think, 4 gigabytes of local memory, and you can download the videos from it and then, send them to whoever you want or archive them or whatever. So I'm pretty happy with it.
I'm looking at it. I'm wondering, I know the eufyCam will do, the eufyCam 2 especially will do HomeKit. I'm wondering if this doorbell also does HomeKit. Do you know? I know you don't have any other HomeKit devices, so it may not have shown up.
I actually found that I do, Dave.
Okay.
So when I was walking around trying to see if the doorbell it identified my Airport Express as a HomeKit device.
That makes sense. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
All of a sudden it popped up and it said, hey, I found another one, because it's an AirPlay destination. So my Apple TV and my Airport Express are now part of the home environment, but that's it.
But no HomeKit on the doorbell is what they're saying.
I thought there was talk, or was it the device you have? There was talk about a beta firmware that could enable it.
So on the eufyCam, it's HomeKit compatible out of the box with the current firmware. And then with the beta firmware, it adds HomeKit Secure Video, which takes your video from any compatible camera and lets you save it to iCloud and share it that way and manage it via your secure iCloud storage. So, the camera will do HomeKit Secure Video, but it'll also just do normal HomeKit video, like a lot of other cameras will. So there's 2 levels of HomeKit video. It gets very confusing. Most cameras don't yet support the HomeKit Secure Video, but obviously some do. And I've got the beta firmware on my eufyCam. You can just ask support for it, and they'll do it for you. It's not because we're special people or anything. We just asked, and they gave it to us. Yeah, but they give it to you too. So, yeah. Yeah.
The only minor downside is that it does not integrate with my smart home, SmartThings hub, whereas other devices do.
Okay. I have a little detour here because, it's like we're spending quarantine time. So it's like, all right, what could I do with my, some of this extra time that I'm forced to be at home? And one of my problems is in my garage of the office building here, which is where the studio is, I have many times will leave the lights on in the garage, and then I'll see them when I'm going to bed, which is across the driveway from the house, and I'll be like, they're LEDs. I'll just leave them on overnight, because I don't want to go put on clothes or whatever and go out and turn off the things, especially if it's cold or raining or even just whatever if it's late. So, but I started thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. I have all the technology because now I put one of those eufycams in my garage so that, and it's motion sensitive, which is great because that's where you have people leave packages and stuff. So it's good. But it's also just a thing and it's fun because I'm a geek. And so that works out fine. And I thought, I have a bunch of these Wise bulbs that are smart bulbs, and I could replace the bulbs in my garage with those. And then I could set up a smart home trigger that says anytime there's motion on the eufycam, turn on the lights in the garage. And then 10 minutes after there's no more motion, turn the lights off. And then I would never have to mess with the lights again. They would do their thing. And I do that with several other things. Like I've got a Ring driveway thing that works with all my smart home stuff, right? My Ring camera, security camera. But the Eufy camera does not link with any of the same things that I can get any of my bulbs or anything to work with. It's like, it doesn't work with the A lady. I don't think it works with the G lady. It does work with HomeKit, but not in a way that I can link all of it together with the motion sensing. So it's like, crap. It's like I'm one step away from being able to tie all this together. I feel like I just need to punt and get a switch in the garage that has a motion sensor in it. But I don't know. So if you have any thoughts, John, I'm open. And if anybody else has any thoughts, feedback@macgeekgab.com. So,
I'm pretty sure I heard you right in that you said feedback@macgeekgab.com.
I did say feedback@macgeekgab.com, and I would love to. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I gotta find a way. Yeah, because it won't work with the smart things. It won't work with the A lady. It won't work with the G lady. It won't, like, I can't get everything to talk to the same thing. And there isn't a Wise plugin for Homebridge yet. So I spent like an afternoon like, oh, I could do it this way. No, can't do that. Oh, wait. I can, like, my son and I went back and forth on it anyway.
Yeah. You remind me, I actually have another project kind of related to that. That I have some outdoor lights that I installed myself like decades ago.
Yeah.
Heathkit, I think, or Zenith, they are.
Sure.
I think over time what happened is the sensor is a bit too sensitive because, it's supposed to be, I guess, thermal. But it comes on way too often when there is nothing there, or it's like the wind blowing or something. So I may look for... I'll start exploring alternatives to outdoor motion sensing.
Yeah, that's what I need. I just need a motion sensor. But it's like I feel like I have all the pieces. I have a motion sensor. It just won't talk to the thing I want it to talk with. So I don't know. Somebody, PJ, in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com is suggesting maybe to use Home Assistant at home-assistant.io. So I know we've talked about Home Assistant before. So we'll put that in the show notes too. That'll remind me to dig in and maybe we'll see. All right. We've got, where are we on time here? You know what I want to do, John, is I want to talk about our first two sponsors, if that's okay by you.
Of course.
All right. Being stuck at home these days, you probably don't think much about internet privacy on your own home network, right? You can just fire up incognito mode, private browsing mode. Nobody can see what you're doing, right? Well, not so much, because even in incognito mode, your online activity can still be traced. Like anybody that has access to your router can see it. Anybody that has access to certainly your ISP, your cable company or whoever that is, they may not be able to see what you're doing, but they can see where you're going and all of that good stuff. And that's why it's really still smart to be using a VPN like ExpressVPN, which is our next sponsor here, right? Because ExpressVPN makes sure that your ISP can't see what sites you visit. Instead, your internet connection is yours and is rerouted privately through ExpressVPN secure servers. Each ExpressVPN server has an IP address that's shared amongst thousands of users, which means everything you do is anonymized and can't be traced back to you. Plus, of course, ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your data with their best-in-class encryption, so your information is always protected. You can use the internet with confidence from your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, to your Android phone, doesn't matter. ExpressVPN works on all of it. And they've got you covered on every device. You tap one button and connect. That's why we love it so much here. It's so easy to use. You just install it and then you press the button and you're done. Like, it's connected. You're done. So you can protect your online activity today with the VPN that we use here and trust to secure our privacy. Our special link at expressvpn.com/MGG is where you want to go so that you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/MGG. expressvpn.com/MGG. And our thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode. Look, you're probably spending a lot more time dealing with email these days. In fact, you're probably sending more email. You're probably receiving more email. And that's why you want to make sure that you're using MailRoute. Because MailRoute at mailroute.net/MGG, our next sponsor here, helps you stop email threats like spam, viruses, phishing, malware, and even downtime. MailRoute is the filter that you send all your email through. You don't have to change mail hosts. You don't change servers or anything like that. They are a filter that sits in the middle. And quite frankly, for a while now, they've been sitting in the middle between you and us. It's right. We're using MailRoute on our MacGeekGab.com domain, and it's been fantastic. Filters out all the spam, all the viruses, all the phishing, all the malware. And what's cool is we get all the control because we can go through all of our mail logs and we can see what the blacklists are blocking. With every other mail provider I've ever used, I never get to see what the blacklists are blocking. They block, but I have no idea, no visibility. With MailRoute, I get 100% visibility. And I can even say, oh, I know that was blocked by a blacklist. Great, but unblock it and send me the email. I want the mail. It's outstanding. They really know what they're doing. I mean, this company was started by this guy, Tom, who worked, with ARPANET early on, and then went on to build a distributed network. And guess what? Started having spam issues with his free email that he was giving out. So he started writing mail filtering rules in 1997 to help his clients. And now, MailRoute. You can see how it connects. You got to check it out. Go to mailroute.net/MGG, mailroute.net/MGG. And as always, our thanks to MailRoute for sponsoring this episode. All right, John. Let's go to Jedd here. Jedd's got, he's got a question for us that I think we might be able to answer if I can find Jedd's audio. How come there's Jedd's audio. That's why I couldn't find it. Let's see what Jedd has to say.
Hey guys, this is Jedd. I hope you are all staying as healthy and as safe and sane as possible. And like many people, I have a remote working question. Mine might be a little unique, but it might not be. So I'm working at home, fine. I have Zoom I'm using Zoom. Not sure it's the smartest for video sharing, but it actually works really well. And I'm also using some remote desktop stuff. Actually, I like Chrome Remote Desktop. I think it's pretty good. But anyways, I also have a huge amount of big files because I'm doing video editing. So currently, to keep in sync, I make a daily folder. I drop it into a media transfer folder in Dropbox. I then have a Hazel action on the other side that copies that folder, or moves that folder into my boss's hard drive. So she has a copy of everything. And vice versa. And that's fine. It works okay. Some of these folders end up being hundreds of gigs. Oh. So my hard disk gets a little full pretty quick.
Yep.
Now I'm trying to think if there was a better way. Like, would it be better to set up a VPN and tunnel between the two? Is there any way to mount her hard drive or my hard drive remotely and just copy it that way and use like a sync, like a carbon copy cloner? I was thinking, do I set up my computer as an FTP, as unsecure as FTPs are? I was just trying to think if there was a better way to do what I'm doing. Right now, what I have works. It's pretty intensive. It takes a lot of manual labor to make sure I don't forget something or to keep things in sync or,
Sure.
to make sure I don't fill up my hard drive space, to be honest. And so I was wondering if you guys had maybe a better solution that I'm not thinking of. I think the ideal would be actually to be able to mount each other's hard drives remotely. Whether that's like using WebDAV or something. But I don't know. I'm hoping you guys have some genius idea that I'm not thinking of.
Wow.
Okay. Stay well. Bye.
Thanks, Jedd. I'm not convinced it'll be genius, but I have an idea. So I honestly, what you're currently doing with Dropbox is a pretty good solution here because it deals with the inconsistencies of syncing data across the WAN, right? Across the internet, because it's not trivial. You need to make sure that the data is in sync, especially with a huge data set. Like there's going to be times where the data on your end is not the same as the data on your boss's end. And that is a problem, right? And you're not alone here, Jedd. We've had other people asking similar questions like, how do I keep, especially now that we're all distributed, how do we keep this stuff in sync? I would not advise starting with mounting each other's hard drives. Again, across the internet, that starts to get a little weird because you don't have anything managing that syncing process. Now, you could, I suppose, use something like ChronoSync with mounting, but honestly, you're adding too much complexity to the setup and too many points of failure, right? You want to have a single point of failure. And the thing that comes to mind to me, John, is Resilio Sync, Resilio. It used to be called BitTorrent Sync, but they changed the name because people were equating BitTorrent with like, oh, it's only used for like piracy and file sharing. And it's like, well, no, it's that they're using the same technology that was used for that peer-to-peer sort of distributed thing. And you can now create your own peer-to-peer network where files are shared, but you're using the reliability of that protocol, that BitTorrent protocol that's serverless. So you don't need to set up a server. You certainly could. You could like buy a Synology and set up, CloudStation and set up your own, effectively your own Dropbox kind of thing and control it. And that would work. And if you've got that, that's another great way to go. But obviously there's an expense to setting that up, both financial and time, right? So I think Resilio Sync is going to do it for you. And there's two versions of Resilio Sync. We'll put links to both in the show notes. There's the individual and business. For what you're doing, you might even be able to get away with the individual one, which happens to be free. The business one isn't terribly expensive, but that's my thought on this, John. What do you think?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I like the Dropbox solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of others that occurred to me, though. So one, you and I just tried it the other day, would be the iCloud Drive shared folder.
Yep.
So that would be, a place where you both, assuming you have the space.
Right. And that's the beauty of Resilio is there is no server to buy space on. You just need the space on your local drive. So like you need to sort of manage that. And she needs to know to move things out of that folder once it gets there. But Resilio Sync, or like you said, Dropbox or iCloud, I mean, they all could accomplish this for sure. Yeah.
Another one that occurs to me. So there was a suggestion to, allow one to log into the Synology.
Yeah.
I would take a different angle on that. So I don't know if you want to create I'm wondering, I'm pretty sure, Dave, you can use Synology Drive to do this.
Yes.
So you would allocate space and then you would give your boss the Synology Drive client and when they, right?
That's what I meant. I said CloudStation. I meant Synology Drive. They changed the name of it a couple of years ago. You're totally right, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Synology Drive is it. And I will add to that, for one of the other businesses, we use Synology Office, which is part of Synology Drive. So you get the syncing part, right? And then Synology Office is like Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Presentation and all of that stuff, but you're hosting it yourself. It works flawlessly. Well, as flawlessly as, I'm hosting it here. So as flawlessly as my internet connection, of course. But, we can have multiple people in the same document editing at the same time. And it's private. Google has no idea what that business does. And that's great. It's like, so it's not a bad thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, Synology, yeah, they've got some good stuff there. Yeah, but you're right. It's Synology Drive, not CloudStation. I got to get that out of my. Part of my problem is that I'm running Synology Drive, but I've been running it so long that on 2 of my Macs, the sync folder that I use is called CloudStation. So I think of it as CloudStation because I don't want to change all my folders and pointers and everything. I know it's not that big of a deal, but it's just, let me be me. It's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. All right. While we're on the subject of Zoom, Jedd mentioned Zoom. It's the only sort of tangentially related thing. We had, but certainly working remotely, we had Israel write in. And Israel says, as a musician, Israel actually wrote this into my Geek Gab podcast for musicians, but the answer is very much for all of us here at Mac Geek Gab. He says, as a musician who's worked in broadcasting most of my career, I've become quite a bit of a hobbyist and have professional experience with things like Wirecast, OBS, Manycam, and all of that stuff. But I have a question related to Zoom. He says, any clues on why Zoom deactivated support for virtual cameras and if they're going to re-enable it in the near future? That was a nice setup for interactive, well-produced online classes and events, which is something that Israel is doing now. And number 2, have you experimented and or have any thoughts about Yellow Duck or other similar tools to manage Instagram live streamings from a streaming software like OBS or Mimo Live or something like that? So to quickly answer number 2, as I said, we've been doing the live video streaming. In fact, if you go to the Mac Geek Gab YouTube channel, which is Mac Geek Gab Podcast at YouTube, you can see this. You can see it on Facebook. And as of today, we're using Yellow Duck because Israel suggested it to stream to Instagram, which also seems to be working. So yes, in fact, the answer now, time shifted, is we are. As far as Zoom, yeah, it's interesting. There's a piece of software called Camtwist that's an excellent example here, because Camtwist lets you create a virtual camera on your Mac, and then you can pump things into that either from a real camera, or you could like stream a QuickTime video into it, or you create whatever you want and like pipe that in as though it were a camera connected via USB. And the nice part about that is then you can choose that virtual camera as your camera in Google Hangouts, Zoom, up until recently, Microsoft Live or whatever it is, like all of those, you got to pick a camera from somewhere, especially if you have multiple cameras on your Mac. And that makes, it's great. Camtwist has been awesome. It's been around for years. 2 weeks ago or something, Zoom pushed out an update that somehow disabled support for virtual cameras, John. I don't know how they did it. They probably put a blacklist in the software that said, if the camera has this identifier, do not treat it as a camera. Because I don't know how else they would trick that, But it means that you can't use Camtwist in Zoom anymore, which stinks. So yeah, I know. And I don't have an answer for that. The answer, we'll put a link to the Reddit thread that sort of talks about this. The answer is to go and like grab an old copy of Zoom, but that's not going to last for very long. And as we've seen, Zoom's security underpinnings are not the most stable foundation. So at times you kind of want the newer versions of Zoom to make sure that you get the security patches that they and other folks have found. So yeah. So any thoughts on that, Mr. John Braun? F. Braun to you and me?
Not today.
Okay. All right. On the sticking with the thread of working remotely and tying in the Synology thing, David has a question. He says, recently I got to thinking, I have a Synology DiskStation that we store our client files on. I've got a couple of staff working from home, so I recently set up remote access on it by adding WebDAV servers on the external access control panel of Synology. Okay. He says, I don't have a specific physical firewall, but our Netgear Nighthawk AC2300 router says that it has double firewall protection, SPI and NAT and SPI. He says, we do use password managers with strong, unique passwords on everything for everything at the company. Okay, that's good. He says, do you think that our server is relatively safe from attack? I've been trying to research, but I can't get very far. I obviously am not asking for any research on your part. Yeah, but that's what we do. We're happy to do that. He says, but I hope that maybe one of you had some experience with this type of setup. Yes, of course. So the firewall on your router provides against more generic attacks, not specific ones, right? An SPI firewall makes sure that only packets replying to things that you have created are sent through. That's a basic definition. I don't think it's incorrect. But you could go deeper. I'm sure somebody's yelling at me about it. But having your DiskStation exposed to the outside world by way of like port forwarding, like you've done here, so that people can get directly to your DiskStation with a WebDAV, is essentially creating a hole in your firewall that lets anyone in the outside talk to your DiskStation. So at that moment, it's up to your DiskStation to provide all of its security, right? And you can do some things, and I'll tell you about a couple, but I think I know where you're going to wind up. So if you go into the DiskStation Manager, go to Control Panel, Security, Account, make sure to enable Auto Block, because what that does is if people try to log in and fail more than X number of times in Y number minutes, well, boom, it blocks that IP address for either forever or for a day or something. So that would be a good thing to turn on. In the same area, but instead of account, go to the firewall section. You can tweak your DiskStation's firewall, which can be helpful, but isn't exactly straightforward. It's a little bit wonky. It's a very manual process, and you need to think a lot more about your network than you probably wanted to. So all of that would work, and you could secure things. But the best thing, though, would be to disable the port forwarding. So make it so people on the outside cannot get to your DiskStation. I know, John, it sounds like crazy talk, but then set up a VPN and set up a VPN directly to your Synology. So we're not talking about a VPN like ExpressVPN, which is to get from your network outside. This is a VPN to let people get in. And by setting up a VPN, the only thing people get to see is your VPN server. And then once they have, the only thing the general public gets to see is your VPN server. And then only after someone properly authenticates with your VPN server do they have access to all of the things as though they're on the inside of your network. So we always say that, you use a VPN so that you can tunnel out of the network that you're on. Well, in this case, you're actually setting it up to have people tunnel in. And Synology's VPN software is great for this and would work exactly for what you want. I think that's the most secure way to do it, because that way you're not having to think about, what holes do I need to plug in the firewall for this next service? And that only that one person needs it, but now I need to open it up to the entire world. No, just the VPN, and then have everybody in. Then once they're in, then it's like they're basically like they're sitting on your local network. So, and that's on Synology. Go to Package Center, all packages, and it's called VPN server, and you can kind of go from there. What do you think about that, John? Am I crazy? Wait, don't answer that question. Do you like my answer?
That is something that I often do when I want to access my Synology from the outside world. I'll run the OpenVPN client, and then, punch in the, typically I have to punch in the IP address of whatever I want to reach.
Sure.
But no, VPN I think is a good solution, because as you pointed out, it eliminates the port forwarding. If you do want to do the port forwarding, one thing I could throw into the mix here, and actually Synology has some sort of security inspector that'll yell at you about this, but you don't have to put services on the port that it's normally defined for. Like one thing that they tell you to do, I think, what is it? SSH is on what, 22 normally?
Yes.
If you're going to do the port forwarding, most servers and clients have flexibility to operate on ports other than the ones that are traditionally used. So that may be another way to kind of throw people off the trail, because a lot of these guys that are looking to break in, they're going to hit, the commonly used ports on whoever they find, and if you put it on a different port, they may miss you. So
I like that. Yeah, security by obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Cool. I like it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything more on that, John?
Oh, yeah, KiwiGram's right here. Yeah, the external port to be different, not the internal. But you can do that map. Typically, you can do that mapping if you're going to do the port forwarding.
Right.
Yeah. So set the external, but keep the internal one, and then it won't be fighting with your
with all your other stuff,
the services.
Yeah, makes good sense. Yep, I like that.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you, KiwiGram, in our chat room. Great stuff. John, Apple released a new iPhone this week, the new iPhone SE 2020. And I went through it because I was like, okay. I was a huge fan, 4 years ago, of the first iPhone SE. It was my daily driver because I liked the size, I liked the battery life, I liked everything about it. So this new iPhone SE is not the same size as the first iPhone SE, right? That was the size of an iPhone 5 in an otherwise iPhone 6 world. So this is now it's the size that the iPhone 8 used to be. The iPhone 8 is, I think, deprecated now. It's off the product line, right? And this is like based on what I can tell, it is exactly the same size as the iPhone 8. Cases should fit, I think, but it's same dimensions, all of that. Except it's got the iPhone 11's A13 Bionic Processor in it, right? So you get way more, you get the same processing power that those of us with an iPhone 11 or iPhone 11 Pro have. All good. You get dual SIM capabilities with a nano SIM and an eSIM, so one of each, which is super handy. No more 3D touch. That's gone on all the iPhones now. So at least they've standardized that, which thank goodness, because that was a mess. Haptic touch. Now, what you don't get from the iPhone 11 is you don't get the extra camera stuff. It's still the same camera you would have had with the iPhone 8. So no night mode. It does have Wi-Fi 6 like the iPhone 11 does. And you can order it and it will be here. I think Friday the 24th is when they start to pump out. So it's interesting. It's still a Team Home button, right? If you want that, but of course that means you're missing, you're not getting a full screen display. You're missing you get the bars at the top and the bottom, but and it's cheap. It's starts at $399, which is great for right now.
And it's also Team Touch ID, which
well, that's why I said Team Home button. Yeah. So but you're right. That does mean Team Touch ID. Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, I'm considering it, and I think the other thing is that I think they offer. I think when I got the 8, they either offered I seem to recall they either offer 64 gigs or 256, and I got the 256. I don't think they offered a 128, but when I looked at the iPhone at the new one,
the SE,
it looks like they offer 3 different. So I may get it. And yeah, the price is way less. The only thing that makes me sad, Dave, is, I looked around, either through Apple or Verizon or, Gazelle or whatever, and the iPhone 8 that I paid $1,000 for, they'll toss me $150 or so. I could probably get more if I put it on eBay or something.
You'll always get more if you put it on eBay. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me sad that, you think a car goes down in value once you drive it off the lot. It's like, once you buy your iPhone, it's like, it's like 10% of what I paid for it. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So I may get it just for the upgraded features.
Cool.
And, all of my accessories will still work because it's, from what I can see, it's the same, 4.7-inch screen, and
it is.
I would assume is the same size. So
yeah, it's not the liquid Retina. It's just the regular Retina display. Same resolution, same pixel depth, not same resolution, same pixel depth as the iPhone's 11 and 11 Pro, but not the same. Not the same brightness or something. I don't know. There's some differences there. But yeah, $399 for a 64, $449 for a 128, which is great, and then $549 for a 256. So yeah, it's a good price. It would have been nice if they could have gotten the whole line off of Touch ID. If they could have done, they need.
I love Touch ID.
Only because you haven't used Face ID. No, really. Until you've used Face ID, I caution you to have an opinion about it. right? Like, because everyone that I have seen with that same resistance, like, oh, I like Touch ID. Well, of course, we're humans. We're change resistant. It's normal. But everyone that I know that has like made the leap, it's taken 2 days or less for them to say, okay, well, this is way better. It's like, yeah, it's way better. I
mean, I've tried it. You know, I've tried it on demo units in the Apple Store.
I know you've tried it, but you haven't lived it. It is different when it's your own phone. So I like, it is a shame to me that, and I get it, it's a cost thing, right? Like the Face ID adds a ton of hardware to make that work. So I get it, and it would require a larger screen, which is going to cost more and all of that stuff. Yeah. So like, I get why the budget phone doesn't have Face ID yet, but it will. The next rev of the iPhone SE will definitely have Face ID. It would just be nice to kind of get rid of the touch button from from Touch ID.
I think they should offer both. How about offering both?
Well, where would they put the button?
Okay. No.
Right. I mean, there is some tech that is doing like fingerprint recognition through a glass sensor. So you know, maybe, or like some of those Doogee phones I have the Touch ID sensor on the back. So you just hold it in the sort of your natural way, and some Samsung phones. I mean, it's not just Doogee. There's a lot of Android.
I have tried that. Yeah. I have tried that on the Samsung phones. Where it's not capacitive. It's image based, I guess.
Yeah, the front one is image based on the Samsung phones, but the back one is capacitive. I think, just like the Touch ID sensor. At least the ones I've tried. Maybe there are some that are image based.
The only other thing is I don't know if you mentioned it, but I think the camera, I don't know if it's either the CCD. I thought it was a higher resolution camera, or they added some features, but not, as you pointed out, the stuff on the 11.
I don't know that they did. I thought when I went and looked at the specs side by side, I didn't see anything different about the camera in the SE versus the iPhone 8. I thought it was the same camera array, like 12 megapixel on the back.
Oh, okay.
I think, you know, but yeah, if you know differently, please let us know. Obviously, yeah. So
no, I'll check their tool. Yeah, they have a tool online where you can put it side by side with what you got now.
Yeah, right. That's right.
So much better.
Yeah. That's right. All right. Yeah. Cool. I have had the pleasure, as I've mentioned, of checking out the new MacBook Air, the 2020 version of the MacBook Air, and this is like, look, my MacBook Air is barely a year old, right? I got it when it came out in December of 2018 or whatever. This update to the MacBook Air is awesome, and the main part of what makes it awesome is the Magic Keyboard. Like, that keyboard is so delicious. And I know you know this, John, because you've got that Magic Keyboard on your new MacBook Pro, the 16-inch. So it really makes a difference. And I've had the keyboard replaced on my MacBook Air, on my 2018 MacBook Air. So it is essentially the 2019 MacBook Air keyboard, which is a remarkable improvement over what it was originally. But it's still not there. Like, it's nothing compared to this Magic Keyboard. Really, really great. So, if you're looking for an Air, the cool part is, in addition to the keyboard, they've added CPU options to the Air again. So you're not just stuck with the one dual-core i5 that I got with my Air, which has been fine, to be perfectly honest. You can now get a dual-core i3, a quad-core i5, or the quad-core i7. The one that Apple sent me is a quad-core i5, so it's the middle-of-the-road one. 10th gen and processor, all of that good stuff. And I'll tell you, it makes a difference. It's got hyper-threading, which i5s didn't used to have. Like, that was reserved only for the i7s, but now it's got hyper-threading in the i5s, which I think started with Intel 8th gen, I want to say. But anyway, this particular CPU has it, regardless of when it started. And it makes a difference. There's many times when I see, especially as the machine is like starting up, where it'll be using all 8 threads, which is really, really nice. And battery life's great on it. The keyboard is obviously the most notable thing from a physical standpoint on this update to the Air, but it's not often that I have, a little bit of FOMO of a machine so quickly after getting one of my own that was, brand new, like to the product line when I got it. But with this keyboard, it definitely, it's like, oh, yeah. Who in the family needs a MacBook Air to pass mine down to so that I can go and get the new one? But maybe I'll save that for when we're traveling more again. And it actually, although these days I'm using the Air on the couch a lot. So, I don't know. I highly recommend it if you're like, this is the computer for most people. I would lean towards the i5 processor just to get the quad cores and give yourself more, headroom, more useful service life down the road. The i3 would be fine, but for the longevity of it for you, I would go for the quad core i5. I obviously haven't tested the i7 yet. That adds another, I think, 40% to the speed. So if I was going to buy one for me, yeah, I'd probably get the i7 because that's just, how I go. But I think the i5 is the right blend for most people. And again, this review unit has 8 gigs of RAM. I bought mine with 16 because I was nervous, and no difference whatsoever. I really can't see a useful difference in that extra 8 gigs. So obviously, if you've got the money, it will not hurt you to have 16 gigs of RAM. But if you need to choose where to spend it, I'd spend it on the processor. 8 gigs is going to be enough. So it's good. Any questions, thoughts on that, John, before we move on?
8 is enough, is what you're saying.
That's what that was the title of the episode when I said that for the first time back over the summer, I think, when I tested that MacBook Pro. I said 8 is enough. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, well, I like 16.
I'm with you.
But if you say 8 is enough, that's good.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. No, like I said, I bought mine with 16 because RAM was the thing that sort of stopped my old Air from being useful. But it was, it was a psychological insurance policy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I knew it going in. I'm like, I probably don't need this. And it's been proven to me several times since. This has been the computer I've been using for the last 3 weeks or whatever. And it's totally fine with 8. And that actually, now that I think about it, I've been messing around and using Logic a whole lot more. Logic Pro 10, the Apple's, professional recording studio software. And 8 gigs of RAM has been more than enough running a ton of plugins in Logic and doing all kinds of things. So I didn't even think about that until we were just talking about it now. So, yeah. All right. Shall we move on back to questions, John?
Sure.
All right. Let's go to listener Mark, who asks, Mark says, where can I find this? After I recently nuked and paved my drive, but after many Google searches, I cannot make the 2 Mac HD icons on my desktop consolidate into just one. What did I do? And so Mark sent us a picture of his desktop, and he has Mac HD and then Mac HD-data. Aha. Thankfully, Mark also sent us a picture of disk utility, and the internal drive is listed as having 3 volumes: Mac HD, Mac HD Data, and Mac HD Data. Okay, so a nuke and pave in the old days was that we would go into disk utility, presumably boot from recovery mode or a USB stick, right? Go into disk utility, wipe out erase the old partition, and then reinstall the OS onto that partition. Create a new one, perhaps. That's what I would do, is just erase, like in his case, he calls it Mac HD. So great, erase Mac HD, recreate Mac HD as a new volume, install onto that, you're good to go. With Catalina, we live in a different world, because with Catalina, there is a container that has Mac HD, in his case, and Mac HD Data, because the system volume, Mac HD, is in most cases mounted read-only, and then your data volume is mounted read-write. The Finder does a fantastic job using firm links to marry these two into one visible volume, but that misleads us when we go into disk utility to nuke and pave because we don't think about the second volume that we are actively using. So what I think happened is Mark did exactly what we would used to do. And that is go into disk utility, wipe out Mac HD, create a new Mac HD, and install Catalina onto it. And when you install Catalina onto a volume, it bifurcates it, and you have 2 volumes left. Mac HD as your system volume, and then Mac HD data as your data volume. Unfortunately, Mark also has his old Mac HD data volume. So the trick would be to figure out which one of these is the one that Mark needs to delete. You can do it one of 2 ways, I think. The first way, and it's probably not the best way, but one way is to go in Disk Utility, go to the View menu, go to Show All Devices. That might show 2 different containers, one containing 2 volumes, one containing just one. If that's the case, then you know which Mac HD data to delete. A safer way, even if you're going to wind up doing it that way, is to go into the Finder and rename Mac HD temporarily. Rename it to something like New Mac HD, because that will change the name of both volumes because the Finder is smart like that. Then you can go into Disk Utility and you will definitely see which one is the old Mac HD data because it'll be the only one named that now. So that's how I would go about this, John. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think this happened one time when I migrated to Catalina, and that I saw the same thing. As I had 3 volumes.
Yeah.
And the way that I determined the one that was the bad one was I checked the size of them, and so the system one was big. One of my data ones was large, and then the other one was left over from something.
Sure.
I think it should have gotten rid, but there was another one that was like very small, and I'm like, okay, that's probably the one I don't need anymore. And so, throwing caution to the wind, I deleted that one.
Yep.
And everything was fine. But yeah, it was unsettling though, because I'm like, I shouldn't see 2 of this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that would do it. That would do it. All right. Let's see. We have, what do we have here? Oh, we can go to, we've got a couple of like hardware-y kind of things to discuss, and we'll start with listener John. And listener John says, my iMac seems to be having some random intermittent problems, both of which occurred today in close succession, but have happened occasionally before, particularly in the last several months. Today I was using Safari when I got a spinning beach ball, which then froze and eventually got a black screen with the message about the computer restarting. After the restart, my Bluetooth keyboard worked long enough for me to log in, but my mouse never worked, and then I lost the keyboard too. I restarted by holding down the power button, and now everything is working properly. Any ideas? So, we get a lot of emails like this, and I figured this would be a great one to kind of highlight in the show here, because these are those things that if it doesn't come back, don't know. Off the top of my head, I have no thoughts other than reset the SMC maybe, right? Which might have happened in a sense with his power down thing. I mean, that's not how it's supposed to work, but there are other things that reset the SMC other than on that machine. It would be unplug the power for 15 seconds, plug the power back in, wait 5 more seconds, and then power it up. So that would certainly be a thing to do. And it's not a bad thing to do on a regular, you don't want to do it daily, but a couple times a year, it's not a bad thing to do anyway. Maybe running a system diagnostic, Apple's system diagnostic, John? I don't know. What do you think?
I'll give you a thought on that
sure.
In the next question.
Okay, fair.
Personally, I've found Apple's diagnostics to be... I've never had it identify a problem. And actually, in the past, I've had it actually identify a problem that didn't exist, and they had a tech note on it.
Right.
It was like, hey, there's something wrong with your SATA port. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
and then I found an Apple article, and they're like, oh, yeah, if you get this message, it's not real. It's like, well, why generate it? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I haven't had a lot of luck with their diagnostics. And that leads us, I think, right
to
Dave,
Ian.
All right, Ian's got one that digs a little deeper here. So Ian says, hi, guys. Hope you're keeping well with the craziness. Yeah, we're trying. I'm having but this is therapy right now. So
right, this is what we do. That's right.
I'm having frequent kernel panics on a 13-inch MacBook Pro 2018. A panic report is below. They are all similar. I'm always a bit confused when trying to decipher these reports. Do you know if CPU4 caller 0xF whatever refers to a memory location that the CPU is trying to access unsuccessfully? I've tried updating to 10.15.4 from 10.15.1. Apple's hardware test says everything is fine. Doesn't it always say that? Yeah, to my point earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking if running Remember at kellycomputing.net/REMBER, do you think safe boot is best to run this so that the maximum amount of RAM is free to be tested? Thanks for your help. All right, here's my thoughts. So yes, the panic reports, Dave, often look to be filled with incomprehensible gibberish, unless you're a developer. And even if you are a developer.
And even then, right, yeah.
Yeah. But based on past experience, I can offer some help. So first off, yeah, the address that he saw, yes, that's a memory location. But I think it's the address of the routine that caused the exception, because they list it again farther down in something they call a backtrace, which is like the history. But that's not going to do you any good.
Okay.
Unless maybe you want to be a developer and run in debug mode. My experience is that if you run something in debug mode, never mind.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm talking about with Xcode, so I'll try it and get back to you.
Okay.
But that may help a developer, that address. But here's the only data in that report, Dave, that I've found useful, is that they'll say kernel extensions in backtrace, and they'll show last loaded KX and last unloaded KX. If anything, Dave, I've found that these can give you a hint as to what piece of hardware is causing your grief. Now, there were a few in there that caught my eye, Dave. One was com.apple.driver.apple.smc. Speaking of SMC.
Okay.
So maybe you want to reset your SMC. Because I don't recall ever seeing that in that list.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Huh.
Then he saw some. Then I saw some other ones, Dave. USB.io USB host HID device, which HID is human interface device, which is typically your input devices.
Yep.
And U exclamation point U audio 322.2. I don't know if that number means anything to you. But that sounds like an audio device. So I don't know if you got an external audio device or maybe it's a system audio device that had it upset.
Universal Audio is a company that makes like super high-end audio devices that I've been sort of drooling over. But I don't know if it looks like this may not be related to Universal Audio based on some Google searches I'm seeing now. I think this is a thing that's on everybody's computer, not just on, the computers of the people I envy. So yeah. No, right. This looks like a thing. So yeah.
Okay. So if you have a U audio device, maybe you get a new driver or something like that. I don't know. But
no, I don't think this is Universal Audio. Okay. I think this is. Okay. Yeah, I don't know though. What is that KEX? That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
It's showing up in a lot of them.
That may be a direction to look. As for diagnostics, yeah, I agree. You may want to get one that's a bit finer grained, and I'll suggest a few here. So one, our friends at Micromat have something called Mac Check that kind of breaks out the diagnostics into it. If anything, at least it shows you the individual parts of the system that it's checking out. So that may help focus your efforts. Of course, Micromat also has much more thorough diagnostics in their TexTool Pro. I think they're on version 12.
TexTool Pro 12, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so MacCheck is free. TexTool Pro 12, and then the other tool they have is called Atomic. That's a memory tester as well. You may want to look to those. But, you might as well check Remember.
It's called Rember, R-E-M-B-E-R.
Rember.
It's a GUI front end to the venerable but time-tested MemTest utility, as far as I can tell. So, yeah.
All right. And I actually checked it out. The thing is, it has an all option. So I And if anything, I think if you run in safe mode, that may actually not help you isolate the problem, because one thing that safe mode does, and I quote from their thing about safe mode, system extensions not required by Mac OS are not loaded. So if it is a third-party thing, it's not going to catch it in safe mode.
Sure. But that would be a way to rule it out too. If you're seeing the error, not in safe mode, then that means right. I mean, it's treating it, being aware of the troubleshooting that's actually happening is the key there. So yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah.
So that's what I got.
That's what you got. All right, cool. Let's go to Bob. No, there's a couple of different Bobs that asked a couple different questions. So this Bob says, while we're on the diagnosing scenario here, I'm using a mid-2010 21-inch iMac and have the following problem. When I try to use the Apple menu bar and click on the Apple dropdown, it gives me a restart option. But when I click it, the computer goes black, the mouse pointer appears, but then stops. It will not finish rebooting. I've also tried to use the keyboard shortcut of Control and Command and the eject key, same result. Screen goes black, mouse pointer appears, then it stops. And he sent us a diagnostic log, which is fine. We're happy to take a look at these, to see if there's anything in there. As John, you said, sometimes yes, and sometimes, mostly times, no. But there might be those little sort of flags that show up. So these are helpful. And he says, also, I've lost my ability to enter a Finder/Spotlight search. I've tried the fix listed on Apple's site, and I'm not exactly sure which fix he meant, but it didn't work. He says, I'm running Albert app, and the find command gives me the results that I need, but I can't search Spotlight, can't search Mail. Any ideas that you have? Okay, so as far as the first problem, John, I did dig in to his diagnostic log, and I saw something where it was hanging or talking about a drive that is, for him, named My Seagate 2 terabyte. So we've seen this before, right? Where ejecting a drive, especially an external drive, can hold up the entire restart process. So I would eject that drive first and truly get it ejected, maybe even unplug it once it's formally ejected from the Finder. Make sure it's not doing anything with your Mac. Then try to shut down. And if that doesn't work, try other peripherals, right? Try and get it down to the bare bones that you can and see if this is truly a problem with your Mac, like software or maybe even hardware-wise shutting down, or if it's related to one of those things you have plugged in. Now, in theory, a drive shouldn't stop this, and that would be something to dig into. Maybe the drive needs to be, you need to run, whatchamacallit, like disk first aid on it or whatever. So that's possible. But that's where I would head with this kind of thing. And, whenever we get these problems in, it's sort of impossible to know because we're not right there. But that's sort of how we approach them, is we look and we say, all right, if we were there, knowing what you've told us, what's the next thing or maybe next three things, if there is a plan, that we would choose to do? And so that's where we are with that. As far as the Spotlight thing, following that same mindset, what I would try next is running Onyx and letting it clear the Spotlight index from the maintenance menu there. And if then you still only have a problem, if that fixes Spotlight, but you still have a problem with Mail, have Spotlight delete the Mail envelope index. That will cause Mail to rebuild its indices the next time you relaunch it. So it'll take a little while. So it's not something you want to do trivially, but that can help solve that stuff too. That's again, that's what I would do if I were there. So thoughts on that, Mr. Braun?
Yeah, actually, for the first one, Dave, another thing you may want to try is, it sounds like it's getting stuck somewhere in the reboot process.
Yeah.
I believe if you put the computer in verbose mode, not only when you start the machine up will you see lots of text about all the stuff that's happening, and this is actually a good way to debug startup problems, in that typically you'll see a line of text saying, yeah, here's where I am, and
yeah,
well, you can see the lack of progress. I believe that also happens when you shut down, is it'll show a trace. So that may help you zero in.
Yeah,
in
for sure.
To that log.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, if the problem is happening when it kicks in, that's the key, right? Because it's not, it doesn't go to verbose mode the moment you hit restart, but it does go there pretty shortly thereafter. So yeah, you're right. That would be, yeah, for sure. For sure.
And then from our chat room, I like this one, Blockhead S88 has a comment here saying, iMac 27-inch 2015 Fusion drive causes panics. Okay. That could be another place to look, maybe.
Yeah.
If you have a Fusion drive.
Yeah.
Maybe unfusion it. I don't know. But it could be one of the drives in the array is bad.
Sure. And
that could also cause panics.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I like it. All right. We have one more in these hardware-ish kind of things, and that comes from Rory. Rory says, on my 27-inch, 13-inch MacBook Pro, the last couple of weeks when running on battery, it will suddenly and without warning go blank. The no battery symbol will then appear on the screen when I try to turn it on. So the Mac thinks the battery is dead. But it has subsequently happened. He says, when I plug it into the charger, it will have some charge on the battery. The first time I did it, 25%. It was immediately showed that it had 25%. The next time, 90%. The next time, 73%, 22%. So all over the map, the Mac doesn't think the battery is dead. He says, I've tried to reset the SMC. He says this works, but only very briefly. It will boot normally, sometimes where I left off, sometimes going through the whole boot procedure, but the thing keeps happening. He says, my battery in system information, or whatever we call that now. Is that what it is? System information? Yeah, system information. Says that the condition of the battery is normal with a cycle count of only 307. It says that it is not fully charged despite the bar showing 100%. So it's saying that it's at 2274 out of 3823 in terms of milliamp hours on the battery. Okay, so I've seen this before, and it's not the best news, but it might be. Your battery isn't really one battery usually. It's multiple cells stitched together with both hardware and some like controller running software to sort of present it as one battery to your system, and then it sort of manages it as a subsystem itself. It sounds like one or maybe more, but not all, of the cells in your battery have simply gone bad. I've seen this. I've had it happen to me. And exactly the same thing. You know, you'll be at 23%, and then boom, it's dead, and you start it back up and it's back at 23%. You're like, what happened? It's like, well, that cell that it was about to go and use doesn't actually have a charge, even though the cell is saying, I have a charge. You're smart to do the SMC and all of that. Sometimes that will fix this, but in your case, it sounds like it's going to be hardware and you need to replace the battery. It's a 2017, so it's possible you're still under warranty. If you've got AppleCare, I would get a call into Apple ASAP. The other piece of good news is that some battery problems, as we've seen, are covered longer than you would have had AppleCare and outside of any other warranties or expired warranties. So Apple may well take advantage. You may be able to take advantage of one of those programs with Apple because they may just replace it for you as a safety concern or something like that. So call Apple right away when your battery, especially if you're having recurring, unexpected battery shutdowns. Right? You think so, John?
I'm looking here. What machine?
It's a 2017 MacBook Pro 13-inch.
Oh, okay. No, they don't have a program. They don't seem to.
It's not a public program.
Maybe, I think they do.
Okay.
Yes, but say you want to learn about public programs, Dave.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? You go to support.apple.com/exchange_repair. I found out about this recently. They do have a list of valid programs. I did a quick scan and couldn't see this, but I do see some for various machines and batteries. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we will put a link in for that. But there are some non-public programs, for lack of a better term that they don't publish on this page, but are very much known to most technicians. So you definitely want to ask about that. So, yeah, cool. Thanks, John. All right. I want to take a minute here and talk about our next sponsor, John, if that works for you, my friend.
Fantastic.
All right. All right. You know, we've been fans of and users of CacheFly for years. In fact, you've all been users of CacheFly too, because they're the ones that provide the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Well, CacheFly does other things. In fact, CacheFly has your back, because with their new web optimization capabilities, all of your content will be optimized before it's delivered to your website's visitors without requiring any development effort from you. That's because of CacheFly's new flexible edge application platform and all of their implementation services. Their capabilities now reach far beyond those of just a traditional CDN. And this allows CacheFly's web content optimization to have powerful APIs for solving content distribution problems, on-the-fly next-gen image optimization, application load balancing, smart asset delivery. That's kind of like what we do here with Geek Gab. And if your website's tied to your revenue, this stuff matters. The good news is the folks at CacheFly are going to provide you with a free optimization consultation just because you're a Geek Gab listener. Yes, that's right. Just for you. So go to mac.cachefly.com, mac.cachefly.com to get that free optimization. Check out what's going on, learn about it. Our thanks to CacheFly for providing all the bandwidth to get this show from us to you and for doing what they do and sponsoring the episode. All right, I think we got a couple questions. I know we have a couple of questions. I think we've got time for a few things here. You know what? Let's go and let's revisit a couple of follow-ups from past episodes, John. We'll start with JP here, and we'll take it from there.
Fellers, it's JP with a comment. Listening to the current episode, and we're talking about bit rot and what would you do to a hard drive to if you can't data scrub it with your Synology, and it's just something you want to keep in motion every once in a while. I have this very scenario in my archiving life with all of my film and video production. My archival system is 3.5-inch hard drives in HUD-Z cases like books on a shelf. And I have a drive dock from OWC, which allows you to just take the raw drive out, drop it in a slot, and mount it and do stuff with it. And that's how I archive stuff. But here's what I do, and I've found it to be very effective to keep the disks working properly over the years. I just went through this during the pandemic because it was a great time to do this. But I do a full copy from one drive to a fresh drive every 3 to 5 years. And I went in there this past couple of weeks, and I found an old archive that I had sitting on the shelf, and the drive itself, which I date when I purchase. Sometimes they don't have the date on the label.
Sure.
The date was 2013, and the thing was still mounting and working, but I was not going to take chances with that at all. So I copied. I buy raw drives from OWC. You can now buy larger drives and fit more things onto them now. And every 3 to 5 years, I will do a full, complete carbon copy clone over to a new, fresh drive. I will erase the old one and I will throw it away. And that is what I was told long ago in order to, keep your data secure.
Yeah.
And the spindles spinning and all that stuff. Anyway, that's the way I do it. So far, it's been working for me. But I'm going to investigate the data scrubbing on my Synology. I had no idea that it could do that. I'm going to look into the control panel when I get home. Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Here's where you cut me off.
Yeah, of course, JP. Thanks for that. That's interesting. I was thinking as you were saying this, I mean, there's obviously some cost involved with JP's plan here, right, John? Because you're buying a new drive every 3 years, which is, for a business, is the right period of time to sort of end of life your drives. That, you know, they're very reliable in general for 3 years, and then after that, you don't know, right? So I get why he's doing this. You know, he's got his business running, and he needs that data to remain. But as I was hearing this, I was thinking, you know, over time, would it be cheaper to get, say, a Synology or, you know, something like that and just archive everything on there and then replace drives as they fail, right? Because if you've got some fault tolerance in your Synology, you can afford to sort of, you know, push things out a little bit and not, you know, adhere to a strict 3-year policy. Synology keeps the drive spinning, as we mentioned, and he mentioned, you know, there's data scrubbing where it can go through and check everything on a regular basis. So you know that the data is there on your drives and you're not having bit rot. And the cost of a multi-bay Synology unit, or for him, a multi-bay expansion, you know, chassis to his existing Synology, in time would probably be less than he's spending on drives, especially if he can get 5 years out of a drive instead of 3, if he knows that he's got that fault tolerance. I don't know. It's just like, you know, his plan's not bad. I just wonder if there's a more economical and perhaps even safer plan. So thanks, JP. It's good. It's good to cogitate upon. I like it. Mm-hmm. Shall we go to Jeff? Because if you don't have a Synology, you can, as Jeff points out, you can use Carbon Copy Cloner to do data scrubbing in a way. He says Carbon Copy Cloner has a parity check mode that does full file comparisons. He says, I used to schedule this monthly at my last workplace to make sure that we weren't suffering from bit rot. So there you go. If you've got a drive mounted, you can use Carbon Copy Cloner's parity check mode to check and make sure everything is out there. I like that. I hadn't thought about using that way. That's pretty good, huh, John?
I've actually enabled this, and actually it's kind of it's not named parity check mode, though. If
okay.
I'm looking here and I got this right. There's a checkbox when you define your job, and the term you should look for is find and replace corrupted files.
Oh,
and I think what it's doing there is it's doing a full. It's comparing.
Yeah.
What's on the drive you're backing up to the backup. And,
right.
And then there's a pull down here because obviously that takes a lot of time because it's basically tearing through all of the content on what you're backing up. I have it set to once a week. So, but yeah, you could also, so I guess he set it to monthly and felt that was sufficient. So the good news is it'll do it. The bad news is it takes a lot of time. So you may want to do it. You may not want to do it every time you do a CCC backup.
I like it. Yeah. When you turn it on, it says Carbon Copy Cloner normally uses file size and modification date to determine whether a file should be copied. While uncommon, it is possible for a file on the destination to become corrupt, and this would not be noticed until you attempt to restore the item. This feature, the Find and Replace Corrupted Files option, causes Carbon Copy Cloner to reread every file on the source and destination, calculate a checksum, then use that checksum to determine if each file should be copied. We recommend using this option on weekly or monthly backups. Yeah, all right. Mm-hmm. I like it. Smart. But yeah, I like that you can do that on your daily clone, just not daily, which is smart. Mm-hmm. Mike and the folks at Bombic there, they know what they know what's up. They know what they're doing. I mean, clearly, you know. All right. We talked in the last episode about modifying EXIF data, John, and you mentioned a Better Finder rename in the episode, right? Because it was one of those things that would let you see EXIF data. Well, Frank from publicspace.net, I think that's the website where all this is. Frank writes this, and he says, thanks for the mention of a Better Finder rename, but it has a companion product called a Better Finder Attributes that allows you to change EXIF timestamps and some EXIF metadata as well. And so we will put a link to this. So it's a follow-up and a cool stuff found. I like it. It's pretty good. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for making the software too, by the way. That's awesome. So that's pretty good. I had no idea. I didn't know about a Better Finder Attributes, and I really had no idea that it would do EXIF data. So pretty good, right, John? Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. Two more, I think. We'll get through these quick. Bob writes, and we were talking about in the last episode, we were talking about using AppTamer to reel in processes that were running away, and it's great for that. He says, it reminded me that at work, the company Macs have to, by policy, have McAfee installed. He says, and many of us are already using AppTamer to keep McAfee from triggering 2 to 3 minute spinning beach balls. He says, we have verified that if we remove McAfee and leave everything else the same, we get no beach balls. But of course, no one can keep McAfee off their company Macs, as the enterprise management software either complains or just reinstalls it. So Activity Monitor never seems to be able to pin the beach balls on McAfee. My theory, he says, is that the problem is in the McAfee kernel extension. And I think the McAfee kernel extension is hooking into all the storage I/O and network I/O, scanning that all the buffers or whatever it's looking for. And he said, so AppTamer comes into play to fix all this. And he says, if you CPU throttle tasks such as Spotlight, Time Machine, McAfee disk scans, of course, Crash Plan, which is their company provided backup. He says basically any app that has high CPU load when a beach ball even occurs, throttle it, and you can eventually reduce the spinning beach balls or eliminate them. So that's pretty good. I like using AppTamer to circumvent that. It's non-optimal, of course, Bob, but you know that's how we go. So thanks for sharing that. Anything on that, John, or you want to take us quickly through Michael?
Michael. Oh, there's Michael. Okay.
Yeah. A follow up to our you need to have a JDK installed discussion in the last episode. So how did you find it?
He actually did some digging for us. So first let me get it up in front of me here. Where is it? Oh my gosh, Dave, I don't see it.
All right. I will.
Oh no, here it is. No,
okay.
I got it. All right.
All right.
All right, so Michael did a little digging for us here, which is great, and he actually found the entry, I think, in a system log.
Really?
Yeah. So I was looking at it. So, and I don't have full content here, but I think I have enough. So we looked at. So he found. Something that was referring to a file, and where was the file? So it identified a cron D job called com.apple.java.install-on-demand.
Oh, all right.
Which and that actually suggests that yes, this is part of Apple's Java installation from its past, and that actually maps, Dave, to an app in System Library, Java, Support, Core Deploy.bundle, Contents, Download Java Components.app. I'm going to say that that's probably what's running.
I would go after that.
Up to you.
Yeah. Oh, I got to remember this the next time I use my neighbor's computer and help him fix this. This is good. Okay. Huh.
Now, here's the only problem, Dave, is that it seems that... So through the Finder, though, if you navigate to this in the Finder, if you try to get rid of it, or I looked in a similar area, you'll get a circle with a slash through it saying, nope, not going to let you do it. So you can't delete this through the Finder, as far as I can see.
I wonder if it's on the read-only system volume. I wonder if that's the reason.
Well, it's in /system, so yes.
Yeah, it would make sense. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's on that. So what may work is if you go into the terminal and go to this and do a sudo space rm, I wonder if that has enough mojo to get rid of it. Or
did you say, sorry, did you say you went into single user mode to do that, or would recommend? Because that's, to me, like single user mode would be the only way to, because otherwise the system volume, you can use sudo, rem-9 kill, whatever you want. It's not gonna, mount the volume as read write. Like there's no scenario where that's gonna be the case. But I wonder if in single user mode you can. This is an experiment we need to do, because this would be a thing, right? Like this is one of those deals. So yeah.
Now you may, another thing, so you pointed out that it's part of the system volume, which I believe is protected by system integrity protection.
Well, yes, but more so now, right? In Catalina, it's just a separate volume and it's read-only. So, system, yes, you're right. It is still protected by system integrity protection, but then also you can't write to it.
Okay. All right. Because I was thinking another thing you could do, this actually came up when I was having that weird mail plugin thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if you go into recovery, go to the terminal and typing CSR-util space disable system integrity protection. So I don't know if that would get you a little farther along.
Right. Maybe.
The final thing is the final thing is you may not be able to delete this file. Unless you follow like Dave's suggestion. The other thing I would think would be a more elegant way would be to just get rid of that launch D job.
Oh, is it a launch D or a cron job?
I think it was launch D.
Okay.
Which was listed in the log that I was looking at.
Yep.
And how do you deal with those things, Dave? Our good pal Lingon. So you should be able to see the job or search and find, this component or this app using Lingon, and then just get rid of the job, because it sounds like you really don't need it.
No, I would agree with not needing it for sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I love Lingon. We mentioned it last week, and that reminded me, I had not enabled its notifications on my iMac in the office, the new one. And I miss those, like having it tell me when things are changed in my launch D scenario. Like I find that a valuable little notification. I don't like many notifications about that kind of stuff, but those I kind of like because they're not all that frequent when they come up. It's like, hey, wait a minute, what's messing with that? That's good to know. So, yeah. Cool. All right, John. Well, as we often say, my friend, all good things must come to an end, and that is true about this too. The good news is we have a lot of questions already. Like, we could do another episode right now, and the difference is we're not gonna. And between now and the next time we do one, you folks are going to send in a ton more questions. So we love it. It keeps things going. It gives us all a thing to kind of dive into and learn from, and it's good. So that's what I got, John. It's good. We told you how to contact us, so that's good. We thanked CacheFly because they're a sponsor of this episode as part of our deal with them, so that's good. We thanked our other sponsors, of course, so mac.cachefly.com, as we mentioned, and expressvpn.com/mgg and mailroute.net/mgg. Check all of those out. You have anything to add before we slip out of here for this week, John?
Well, another thing that was one of the tips we got through Twitter, and if you want to do the Twitters, Dave and I, and everybody's on Twitter. Well, almost everybody. I'm John F. Ron. He's Dave Hamilton. The podcast is Mac Geek Gab. The publication is Mac Observer. And there's also that Pilot Pete guy, which I know he's probably not doing a lot of piloting these days.
I don't know. FedEx is moving a lot of things around the country, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a little while. Yeah, he might be busy. Yeah. Hopefully he's staying safe. It's good. Hopefully you're all staying safe and healthy and productive enough to remain sane, because that's good. It's a shame that we heard this week that Mac stock won't be happening this year, understandably. It will be pushed off till next year and will be bigger than it's ever been, longer, even better. But that reminded me of a nice moment we had last year at Mac Stock, where everyone helped share our favorite words of advice. Take it away, folks.
Don't get caught.
It's good.
Made on a Mac.
All right, and we are out. All right.